All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this Sunday, March 8th, 2025. We're here to discuss this book, Sri Guru and His Grace, but Her Sweetness, Suvasini Meenakshi Sundaram, just asked me, what about the Premadhamma Stotram? We read the Nityananda Dwarashakam that I tried to make into an English translation according to a more poetic view. There's translations and there's translations. And sometimes we want a compact translation that's to the point. Sometimes we want a detailed translation that includes absolutely everything. As Srila Sri Ramakrishna used to say, connotation increases, denotation decreases. It's an interesting principle. In the Vedanta Sutra, there's very little denotation. The sutras are tight and compact. Om Tat Sat Tat Tvamasi. What does that mean, Tat Tvamasi? Well, the Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, and that runs to 18,000 shlokas. So that's pure connotation, pure denotation. I don't know, you have to think about it. Very little is denoted in the Vedanta. It's all connotation. But everything is noted down in the Bhagavatam. So there's not so much need for connotation, and so it is with translation. Some translations can be very tight, but they leave a lot to the imagination. Other translations will include everything that is not absolutely stated. The Nityananda Dwarashakam follows the opening shlokas of the Adi Leela of Kaviraj Goswami, where he expounds on the idea of Om Purnam in the Sri Ishupanishad. It says, Om Purnam, Om Purna Purnamadam Purnam. I can't do the Sanskrit right now, but the idea is that can be translated different ways. See, from the complete comes the complete. Some translations will go like that. Srila Sri Ramakrishna liked infinite divided by infinite is still infinite. And I think that's really brilliant the way he puts that. So in the Adi Leela of Kaviraj Goswami, Kaviraj Goswami is describing how does the infinite divide? And the first division is Balaram. In terms of our relationship with Godhead, in terms of God revealing himself to us, his first helper is Balaram, and that's Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityananda Prabhu expounds this, of course, as Karnadakshay Vishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Kiradakshay Vishnu, the Paramatma. And all that is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if you follow the structure of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami will first give a shloka in Sanskrit, or maybe 3 or 4 shlokas in Sanskrit. And later, he will describe that in Bengali. So if someone is making a purport or a commentary on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, they will first comment on the Sanskrit shloka, and the next one, and the next one. And then they'll comment on the Bengali, really, translation given by Kaviraj Goswami. So you've got shlokas upon shlokas, and comments on comments. And in his Nityananda Dwarashakam, Srila Sridhar Maharaj puts this all very succinctly into 12 verses. So I tried to give that a bit of a poetic interpretation, whereas another translation will include all the commentary from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, from Kaviraj Goswami to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinod, Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And so the translation will be quite lengthy. So the same is true of the Prema Dhamma Stotram of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. There he's expanding on the life and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But again, he's doing that in a very succinct, poetic form that's also got a happy style. And so I'm familiar with the translation that was made before, but I thought, why not create something a little bit more poetic in English, a little bit more in line with what Srila Sridhar Maharaj was attempting in that poem, and something that might be happy to read. So that was my version of the Prema Dhamma Stotram. I have it on my shelf here somewhere, but it's not at hand. And that was kindly printed by His Grace Pranashish Prabhu, who did me the favor of putting that into print and distributing it around Ireland. And our book actually went international. And the first run was completely sold out. But I started doing a reading of that. And I would read 10 or 20 shlokas. I made videos. But I didn't have quite the stamina or the space on my hard drive for the videos I was creating. Anyways, we'll try to read that next week for all of you. We'll read the Prema Dhamma Stotram. For those of you who are not familiar with that, this is a poetic version of the life and teachings of Sri Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, also known as Gauranga for his golden form. And next week we'll be celebrating Gaur Purnim, which is the golden moon of Sri Chaitanya. And oddly, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born as Nimai Pandit in Navadvip Dham. And at that time, there was a lunar eclipse. And I'm told that this year there will also be a lunar eclipse on March 14th. I don't know if it's visible in India, but it will be here in Mexico. So the Gauranga moon appears during the lunar eclipse. And that was around 500 years ago. And so we'll try to celebrate that by next week suspending our reading of Sri Guru's Grace, and we'll read the Prema Dhamma Stotram if all of you are happy with that. What sayest thou? What do you say, Adwai? Yes or no? Okay, we have 2 thumbs up. That's good enough for me. All right, we're going to read a little bit from Sri Guru's Grace. And I just saw on the internet that people are turning away from the Catholic Church because they don't like sermons. And the sermons are long and windy and boring. So I don't want to bore anyone here. And you can let me know. You can go like this, you know. We do that in show business. In Mexico, we don't do this. We do this. It's interesting. But in Hollywood, that's it. Let me know. Okay. So here we are in chapter 5. This is God consciousness versus society consciousness. And a student asks, in the quest for spiritual life, one may join a religious mission to advance towards the ultimate goal of life. At some time, however, sectarian policies may appear to bar the path of progress. He may see that within the society, pragmatic concerns take precedence over spiritual details. If one feels the necessity to look elsewhere, his authorities may tell him that there are no higher truths to be found. One may also be warned that if he leaves the society, he will suffer serious repercussions. He may become an outcast, branded as a heretic for pursuing what he sincerely feels to be the ideal upon which the society was founded. Should he risk leaving the society, ignoring the advice of his immediate authorities, or should he try to remain within the society? So this is a very powerful question here that is probably in the minds of a lot of people, not only within our own Krishna consciousness movement, but in many different spiritual societies, religious missions around the world. But most people are afraid to ask a question like this because it exposes you to the same things you're afraid of. That is, being ostracized, being an outcast, a heretic. So the question is, should he risk leaving the society, ignoring the advice of his immediate authorities, or should he try to remain within the society? So Srila Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj answers this. He says, progress means elimination and new acceptance. So when there is a clash between the relative and the absolute standpoint, the relative must be left aside, and the absolute should be accepted. So this is a powerful answer. But it's a little more subtle than it may seem at first glance. Progress means elimination and new acceptance. So when there's a clash between the relative and the absolute standpoint, the relative must be left aside and the absolute should be accepted. And then he gives an example. He says, well, suppose you're American, but at heart you're a socialist. In your general practices, you will live harmoniously as an American. But when there's a conflict between the capitalists and the socialists, which side will you accept, socialist or capitalist? Your creed is that of a socialist. You live in a country where the majority are capitalists. Then when there is no difference between the two parties, there's no conflict. But when there is a clash, which side will you side with? Internally, you may identify yourself as a socialist, but for the sake of peace and for the good of the country, you may not express it externally. But suppose you are an out-and-out socialist, you will try to keep your creed, the purity of your faith, for the socialists. You will try to leave the country and join the socialists. So the absolute and the relative are two different classes of interest. And we find more importance in the absolute interest. We must be sincere to our own creed. Sometimes we have to leave our paraphernalia if it does not suit us. So also, even in the conception of purity of the Krishna consciousness movement, Even in the Vaishnava creed, there is purity in form. The form is necessary to help me in a general way to maintain my present position. At the same time, my conception of the higher ideal will always goad me to advance, to go forward. And wherever I go, I must follow the greater model, the greater ideal. Spiritual life is progressive, not stagnant. Do you follow? And it strikes me that Srila Sridhar Maharaj, in his discourse, he would stop and ask his students, do you follow? What do you think? Are we on the same page here? Do you have a different idea? How would you explain it? Because Srila Sridhar Maharaj had the ability to listen to different points of view and harmonize them, which is one of his great talents, his great genius, if you like. So he's open. I said, this is my point of view. The relative and the absolute, they're always coming in clash. Progress moves in a zigzag line. If you ever watch a sailboat, Pranashish has experience in sailing, you have to tack, which means you want to get here, but you tack this way, and then you tack back this way, and then you tack this way, and you tack that way to get to the point that you're trying to arrive at. You have to move in a zigzag line. Joe Louis once knocked out a famous boxer, and they asked the boxer, what happened? You got knocked out by Joe Louis. He said, well, I zigged when I should have zagged, right? So Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, progress moves in a zigzag line. It doesn't move in a straight line. So you move this way, and then you eliminate something, and then you have to move back that way, and then you eliminate something. Progress means elimination and new acceptance. So these are very powerful points. And you can see here the Sridhar Maharaj speaks almost as an oracle in the sense that people in ancient Greece, Alexander the Great, for example, would visit the Delphic oracle and ask, is this a good time for war? And the oracle would give an answer like, it may rain. And that would be it. And Alexander had to think, what does that mean? You know, yes, it means I should go to war. But interpreting the same signal later, someone else will say, oh, no, no, that means it may rain, don't go to war. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj, sometimes he's speaking in parables almost, where it's possible to have two completely different interpretations of what he's saying. But then again, what he's telling you is it can go this way or it can go that way. Try to get to the truth. We are slaves of the truth, you know. It may zig, it may zag, it may move in a crooked line, but come to the truth. And then he continues giving different examples. But in a sense, I was thinking, this reminds me, because I'm supposed to be giving elucidations, you know. So my elucidation on this is that even in Dharma, even in considerations of Dharma, there's different points of view. So here, someone is asking, well, what if I find that my religious organization is not adhering to what they were teaching me about Dharma? I was told that Dharma means this, but then suddenly I see all these things that I cannot reconcile. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, well, stick to the truth, follow your star. There's different concepts of Dharma, aren't there? So, for example, I was thinking a good illustration for this is the story of Vyasadeva and his relationship with his Guru Dev. Now, Vyasadeva composed the Mahabharata. Madhvacharya is said to be a direct disciple of Vyasadeva because Vyasadeva appears to him and dictates his Tattvavadi commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. And Madhvacharya is very strict. He doesn't admit that there can be such a thing as the Brahma Vimochana Lila. It doesn't like it that the creator of the universe is bewildered by Krishna. And so he casts a bit of shadow on that section of the Bhagavatam because he doesn't feel that it would be appropriate for the leader of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya to have fallen under any sort of illusion. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has no problem with that, but Madhva, being very strict, he doesn't like that. And he probably doesn't like the idea that Vyasadeva would admit to some sort of shortcoming in his teachings. But it turns out, according to the version of the Bhagavatam, which is written by Vyasadeva, that Vyasadeva suffered from a kind of despondency after having written the Mahabharata, after having composed 100,000 Sanskrit verses extolling the virtues of Dharma. He goes to the banks of the Ganges to meditate, thinking, I made a big mistake. I haven't done things properly. What can I do? And Narada Muni appears before him. And Narada Muni says, well, what's your problem? He says, I don't know. I composed the Mahabharata. And Narada says, yes, the Mahabharata is very nice. Very nice book. Interesting stories. Very popular. And Vyasadeva says, yes, but I feel unfulfilled. I didn't really touch, I think, on the higher truths. And Narada Muni says, yes, you're right. You should feel unfulfilled. He says, Jugupsitam dharma kritenu shashataha svabhava raktasya mahan vyatikrama yad vakyato dharma ititarashtito namanyate tasya nivaranam jana. He says the people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable. Because they're guided under your instructions, they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. So if you think about the Mahabharata, it has all these strange stories. For example, there's a story of the Ganges and Bhishma. And on the one side, you've got Shantanu, who's saying, what are you doing? Ganges, you're aborting my children. You're drowning them in the water. As soon as one of your babies is born, it's worse than abortion. You're killing babies. As soon as they're born, you drown them in the waters of the Ganges. How can you do that? How can you justify that? And Ganges explains, well, you missed your chance. As soon as you contradict me, I will disappear. And, I was doing this quietly, but this is actually about the different Vasus who are stars in the higher constellations of the universe condemned to be born on this planet, and I'm returning them to their heavenly homes. And as far as this last Bhishma, he's supposed to suffer for a long time. But anyways, goodbye. So you have this strange story about Ganga Devi justifying abortion. Then again, what about Dronacharya? The story of Dronacharya is the story of biogenesis. You know, we hear so much about transgenic corn, especially here in Mexico. It's a big deal because there's this corporation that creates really wonderful corn, but when you plant it, it's sterile. And normally the farmers would take a certain number of corn cobs out of circulation to use as seed. But in the case of Monsanto, these seeds are sterile. They don't grow anything. So you have to go back to the same company and buy the same seed. That's diabolical. So genetic engineering. You have the story of Dronacharya. He's a product of genetic engineering or artificial insemination, because one day his father, Domya Rishi, is on the banks of the Ganges and he sees a beautiful Apsara, half naked, with her breasts sticking to her sari and the nipples are showing through. So he begins to masturbate and he catches his semen in a pot, a drona. And then by the magic of some sort of transgenic genetic engineering, Dronacharya is born. So there's another story that's unusual. It seems to promote religion, but does it really? Then there's Shikandi. The story of Shikandi is the story of Ambika, who was spurned by Bhishma Dev and vows revenge. She goes to Shiva, wants to be a man in her next life, but she's again born as a woman. She goes to a yaksha in the forest who says, well, this is very simple. I'll give you my masculinity, or you can, and you give me your femininity, and we'll try it on for about a month or so. And you come back under the next moon and we'll change back. But things go awry because Kuvera, the lord of money, the lord of wealth, visits the yaksha, and the yaksha's in feminine mode cleaning the house. And there's flowers everywhere, and it smells lovely. But this is not the yaksha that Kuvera knew. And so he challenges him and says, wait, where are you? And he comes out as a woman. And then Kuvera curses him that he will always remain that way. So Shikandi goes on to become a great warrior and kills Bhishma. So this is the story of a transgender person. Then there's politics, right? The Mahabharata promotes all these different kinds of politics. Vidura is the guru of the Kurus, and yet he allows Duryodhana to do all kinds of things in the name of Dharma, persecuting the Pandavas. And as you read the story, of course, we love the Pandavas and Arjuna and Yudhishthira and Bhima. But the people of Hastinapur, they love Duryodhana. They want more of him. They want more Duryodhana because he's a just ruler and he promotes land reform, or who knows. But in the end, Krishna has a higher purpose and promotes the Pandavas. Why? Who has the better politics? The Kurus or the Pandavas? Then again, there's Shiva, who all the demons seem to worship, and all the demons ask for different kinds of benedictions from Shiva, and Shiva being Asutosh, or easy to please. he gives them those benedictions, but the benedictions all turn out to be curses uh, because in the end they lose. Uh, so apparently, all these different things that are going on in the Mahabharata, this is all going on in the name of Dharma. But here, uh, Narada Muni is saying, Jugupsitam Dharma Kritenu Shashitaha. You're promoting all these uh, interesting ideas in the name of Dharma, but where's the Dharma here? So one might find, all right, I joined the Krishna consciousness movement because I like the idea that the soul is eternal. I like the idea that God is a person. I like the idea of Krishna. I like the Hare Krishna mantra. As you know, we were reading in the last chapter, uh, Srila Sridhar says, here's the purpose. Nama Shreshtam Manamapi Sachiputram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Maturim Goshtapatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Guru Tamnatosmi. What is it that Guru Dev is giving us? The highest conception of the holy name of Krishna, the highest form of sound, which contains the highest form of thought, aspiration, ideal, everything. The mantra, the name is there. He's given us the service of that great Savior, the son of Mother Sachi, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a golden mountain standing to show us the direction of Krishna Lila. The lotus feet of Mahaprabhu's favorite personal assistant, Sarup Damodar. He's put me in connection with Rupa. Raganuga Bhakti, spontaneous love, was distributed by Rupa. By his grace, I've got Sanatan Goswami, who adjusts our position in relation to Raganuga Bhakti, explaining the path of Vaidhi Bhakti, gives us Sambandha Gyan, the knowledge of what is what. Guru Dev has given me Mathura Mandal, where Radha and Govinda have their pastimes, where the forest, the hills, every creeper, shrub, and grain of sand, everyone is bearing the acquaintance of Radha Krishna Lila. And wherever I cast my glance, they'll help me in remembering Radha and Govinda. This is what I've been given by Guru Dev. And he says, in this verse, Raghunath Das Goswami gives the real acquaintance of what is the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So this is Krishna consciousness. Take the name of Krishna. This grand worldwide mission will thrive like anything. It will touch the heavens and cover the earth and other planets. That was the aim of Bhaktivedanta Swami. And we understand and appreciate that. So then, if the mission is giving you something different, like here, Narada Muni is criticizing Vyasa. What are you giving there? What does that have to do with Radha and Krishna? What is the story of Ganges and Bhishma and the abortion, or the politics of Duryodhana, or the transgenderism of Shikandi? What does this have to do with Radha and Krishna? So do something different. Write the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Srinivas continues. He says, it's progressive. We're in the stage of sadhana, spiritual practice, and we want a progressive life. We want to go ahead, not backwards. The formal position will help me to maintain my present status. So he's not saying that there should be no organization, but he's saying, pay attention to your own spiritual life. The organization is fine. It's a good thing. But in the end, you have to answer. We want to go ahead, not backwards. The formal position will help me to maintain my present status. My extraordinary affinity for the ideal will goad me towards the front. Just as there are so many progressive parties, so many missions, progressive communists, progressive Christianity. First there were Catholics, then Protestants, Puritans. In this way, Christianity progressed. So there's development in the right way and also in the wrong way. The search for Sri Krishna is dynamic and living, so adjustment and readjustment is always going on. And we should also change our present position accordingly so that we may not have to sacrifice the high ideal for which we have come. So I remember when I was putting this book together with Goswami Maharaj a long time ago, 40 years ago. We were discussing these things. And I remembered from my studies at university, I read this book by Dostoevsky called The Brothers Karamazov, because I was struggling with my own personal faith in those days. And there's an interesting chapter in that book which is quite revealing. It's called The Grand Inquisitor. And in that chapter, there's two brothers having a talk, and one of them wants to become a monk. One of them is thinking of joining a religious mission, Alyosha. And the other one is a man of the world. He likes gambling, he likes women. He's a bit of an atheist. And to discourage his brother, he tells him, I've written this poem called The Grand Inquisitor. You should hear it. And he describes the poem to his brother. It's not really a poem, it's more of a story. It goes on for a long, long number of pages. But just very briefly, he has this particular conceit that what would happen if Jesus Christ returned to the earth planet today and he saw what was going on? What would he think? What would he think of the church? What would he think of the Pope? Only to make it a little bit more polemic, he subbed his story during the time of the Grand Inquisitor. And the Grand Inquisitor is in Toledo, Torquemada. And Torquemada has just returned from what was called an act of faith, an auto de fe, where he's burned 600 heretics at the stake. And he's returned to his desk in the dungeon of the Inquisitors in a big castle in Toledo. And he's taking a break, having a cup of tea. But his body stinks of the smell of burning flesh from all the heretics and Jews he's been burning. And in walks a figure at the door. And he looks up and he sees it's Jesus Christ. And he says, don't say anything. I know what you're thinking. Don't say anything. I know what you're thinking. You know, you just saw your church burn a bunch of people because they believed in something the wrong way, because they walked the wrong way. They didn't cross themselves correctly. When I visited Moscow or Petersburg, I can't remember this. It was the Russian Museum in Petersburg, I think. There's this giant canvas that covers a wall. It shows an old woman being driven out of Petersburg, and she's on a cart with all her belongings. And now she's being driven out. She's crossing herself with 3 fingers. Because they were driving out everybody who crossed themselves with 3 fingers. Now you were supposed to cross yourself with 2 fingers. I don't remember all this significance, but this sort of religious persecution has been going on. Anyways, the Grand Inquisitor, he looks at Christ and he says, yeah, I know. humility, blessed are the poor, blessed are the humble, blessed are the meek, but that won't fly, okay? Shut up. I'll tell you why that's not going to fly. Don't say anything. Just you just stand there and be quiet. I can burn you. That's my power. I don't care who you are. You may be Jesus Christ, but you were crucified. I can crucify you again, but I think it would be better to burn you at the stake. So shut up and listen. I'm the authority here. This is my church. And Christ, for his part, he just stands there humbly. He doesn't say anything. And the inquisitor, he begins to make his argument. He says, look, and right now we're here in Mexico, they just celebrated Ash Wednesday. And then they have 40 days of Lent where they don't eat meat because it represents the time that Jesus Christ spent in the desert meditating. It's said that he met with the devil himself. So the inquisitor reminds Christ, now look, you met with the devil, and the devil said, you're hungry. Do a miracle. Change the stones into bread. You changed the water into wine. You made a miracle at the wedding of Cana. You changed the water into wine. Change the stones into bread. You can eat. And the inquisitor reminds him, this happened. You were in the desert with the devil. The devil told you, change the stones into bread. What did you do? Did you change the stones into bread? No, you didn't, you fool. You should have done that. And what did you say? Why didn't you change the stones into bread? Well, your point was, I can't do that because if I show that kind of a miracle, I will deprive people of their free will. They won't worship God out of love. They'll worship God out of fear because they know God is so powerful, he can change the stones into bread. He's capable of great miracles. I must worship him. But then that's not devotion. That's not bhakti. That's not divine love. And that's what you wanted. But you wanted too much. You were asking too much. People can't do that. They want miracles. So what does the church do? We take your money and we turn it into the little wafer. We take gold and we turn the gold into bread. And we give you Holy Communion. That's what we do. We make miracles. We're capable of transforming stone into bread, and that's what the people want. The people want miracles. That's why the church is still here. That's why the church is still progressing. And what did you give? You gave them freedom. That was the wrong move. People don't want freedom and they don't know what to do with it. So what did we do? We took away their freedom. We gave them slavery. And what happened? They love it. They love the church. They don't really want you, okay? So accept that the organization is doing what the organization has to do. It's the only way that souls can be saved. They have to stick with the organization. And you should just go on your way and keep your mouth shut. And so in this story composed by Dostoevsky, spoken by Ivan to Alyosha and the brothers Karamazov, the Grand Inquisitor, Christ, what does he say? He turns to the Inquisitor and he kisses him on the forehead, and then he disappears. And people interpret this to mean, well, here Christ is showing that love is greater than the dogma of the institution. But it's a great story if you go through it, because it's talking about God consciousness versus society consciousness, or the absolute and relative consideration. The absolute consideration of Christ was uh, freedom, free will, and divine love. And the relative consideration of the church was we need to keep the institution going at whatever cost, and we will eliminate all the opposition. So that's my elucidation on that. Srila Sri Ramakrishna continues. One is born in a particular land by the arrangement of nature, but his high ideal may sometimes ask him to leave the country. Einstein had to leave Germany and go to America for his high ideal of life. And so many similar instances may be found in the world. The ideal is all in all. So here, Srila Sri Ramakrishna is supporting the version of Jesus Christ against the inquisitor. The highest ideal in a man is his highest jewel. Our most precious gem is our ideal. Many things are recommended in the scriptures. So, we can criticize Vyas, or Narada here criticizes Vyas for Jagupsita Dharma, promoting different aspects of Dharma, which are not the highest aspect. Many things are recommended in the scripture, but they're meant to promote us toward the truth in an indirect way. Swadharme nidanam shreya. So it is recommended that at a certain stage, that for the sake of our close friends, we should give up our ideal. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's final instruction is sarva dharma prityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. If it is necessary to maintain the highest ideal, you must give up your friends. Surrender to me. I am the real purport of the scriptures. The highest kind of idealists give up their country, their family, their friends, and everything else, but they can't give up their ideal. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says it's better to die while performing one's own duty than to try to do another's duty. This is one stage of understanding, the relative consideration. The absolute consideration is also given. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Krishna says, give up everything, come to me directly. This is the revolutionary way. This is absolute. And this is relative. Stick to your own clan. Don't leave them. That's the national conception. There's nation consciousness and God consciousness, society consciousness and God consciousness. God consciousness is absolute. If society consciousness hinders the development of God consciousness, it should be left behind. Well, that's about an hour. And as I said, I don't want to bore you. You're such wonderful, wonderful people to, I don't know if you're really sitting there listening. I suppose you are. But I remember when I gave Zoom classes, my students would freeze their camera so that the student is always just slightly moving, and I'd think, oh, they're listening. And I'd find out they were really looking at their cell phone the whole time. But I really, really appreciate it's very kind of you to offer your attention to me. Last night I was thinking, I'm so tired. I can't do this again. I was going to send a message to Subhashini saying, you know what, I'm going to take a break this week. Then I discovered, oh boy, next week is Gaur Purnim. Huh. And I was sending this message to Subhashini saying, dear Subhashini, I am so tired. I don't think I can do this. Let's wait till next week. And then I saw her message saying, okay, so we're doing it tomorrow, right? And I thought, okay, all right, one more for the team. But just knowing that there's somebody listening, it's enough for me to try to shine some light on this. The story of the Grand Inquisitor, it's an interesting story because if you look at how it's been interpreted, you'll see the interpretation of even that goes both ways. There are people who support the Grand Inquisitor. But Narada Muni is telling Vyasa, okay, you did it. You gave all these relative considerations. Srila Sridhar Maharaj boils it down. He says, okay, relative consideration, svadharma nidadam shreya. Do your thing. You'll be king, you know. But later Krishna says sarva dharma, but give up all that. Why does he say dharma? Why doesn't he say something else? Sarva karma parityaja, you know? That's always troubled me. From the first time I read the Bhagavad Gita, it says, give up religion. But isn't this promoting religion? Doesn't the Bhagavad Gita promote religion? You know? How does he say, give up all religion? What is it supposed to mean? But if you look into the meaning of the word dharma, it includes duty. So Krishna says, svadharma, do your own thing, do your own dharma. Don't do somebody else's dharma. It's dangerous, you know. But then the end, he says, give it all up. Be mine. Anyways, thank you so much for your sublime attention. And, you know, any questions, comments? Maybe I got this all wrong. It's all wrong. How's everything up in Northern Ireland, Adwai? Are you still in Cooley?
Yes, yes, everything is fine. Everything is fine. It's a sunny day, believe it or not. It's really sunny and warm today.
Oh, that's good. It's a beautiful day here, and people come and visit San Miguel de Allende here in Mexico, and it just blows them away. They can't believe how beautiful it is, and they sell everything and come here. And then they discover church bells, dogs, fireworks, constant fireworks, violence, gunshots. But the weather, I have to say, is sublime. It's a beautiful day. Well, thanks again, all of you. Let's hope Pranashishi promised me he was going to print the Dwadashakam. We're going to reprint the Premadama Stotram. You know, let's stick to it. These things take years to do. And next week, don't miss it. We'll have a special chapter of this talk where we'll try to read from the Premadama Stotra. Bring your book. Maybe I'll get tired and you can read something. That would be fun. All right? Okay. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Mahayogi Prabhu Ki Jai. Thank you very much, Mahayogi Prabhu, and Dandavats. Yeah.
Peace.
Dandavats.